My name is Mikkel White. I am the pastor here at the South Lansing campus of Sycamore Creek Church, and joining me this morning is Erin Umstead.
Hi, friends. Yes, I volunteer here at Sycamore Creek because I love it here, and I'm also an English teacher with 3 more days left.
We're like in the finish line. Like
I think I can. I
can. You can do it. Just
yes.
A few more days.
Thank you, Jesus.
All right, so we have a shout out question for you to get started this morning. What is your favorite season? Spring, fall,
autumn,
hockey playoffs. No, just kidding.
Sports fall season.
It is a hockey season, yeah. The first game of the final series of the playoffs was last night. My team's not in it, so whatever. I don't care. Just kidding. All right, we have a couple of songs this morning. Would you stand with us as you're able, and let's sing together.
Well, good morning. This first song we're doing is a new song, at least. I think we haven't done it here before, so but it is really easy to catch on to, and it's a really, really amazing kind of story of how all are welcome in the house of God. So as you learn this with us, sing out, and we'll do this together.
On this journey, I get lost in my mistakes, and what seems to me like weakness is a canvas for your strength. And my story isn't over, my story's just begun, and failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Yeah, failure won't define me, 'cause that's what my Father does. Ooh, lay your burden down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Rival's not the end game, the journey's where you are. You never wanted perfect, you just wanted my heart. And the story isn't over if the story isn't good. And failure's never final when the Father's in the room. Yeah, failure's never final when the Father's in the room. When the Father's down, here in the Father's house. Check your shame at the door, it ain't welcome anymore. You're in the Father's house. Prodigals come home, the helpless find hope. Was on the move when the Father's in the room. The rose ring wide, the dead come to life. Love's on the move when the Father's in the room. Miracles take place, the cynical find faith. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. The Jericho walls are quaking, the strongholds down was shaking. Love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Yeah, love is breaking through when the Father's in the room. Lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. Take your shame at the door, 'cause it ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house. Yeah. Lay your burdens down. Ooh, here in the Father's house. check your shame at the door. It ain't welcome anymore. Ooh, you're in the Father's house.
It's such a good reminder, that one line where it says, check your shame at the door, it's not welcome anymore. And I think it's a good reminder when we frame it correctly, right? For many of us, shame is one of those things that we feel is inseparable from who we are. But there's this beauty in who God is, that God never really defines us by that or sees us. He actually longs to walk through healing with us. And checking the shame at the door is one of those things where I can remind myself that, like, the ways that I feel like I am inherently wrong, God doesn't see. Like, he loves and blesses and welcomes me the way I am. And he does that for you too. And I just think that that's a really beautiful reminder. But sometimes those reminders are hard to remember. So this next song we're going to sing is called Trust in You. And it is maybe a space where you can lean into that. Like, if it's hard to remember the truth that God says about who you are, we can trust that when he says is true, what God says is true about us. Let me get my capo right. Letting go of every single dream, I lay each one down at your feet. And every moment of my wandering never changes what you see. I've tried to win this war, I confess. My hands are weary and I need your rest. Mighty warrior, king of the fight. No matter what I face, you're by my side. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers, as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. Truth is, you know what tomorrow brings. There's not a day ahead you have not seen. So in all things, be my life and breath. I want what you want, Lord, and nothing less. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers, as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. And I will trust in you. You are my strength and comfort. You are my steady hand. You are my firm foundation, the rock on which I stand. Your ways are always higher. Your plans are always good. There's not a place where I'll go you've not already stood. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers, as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. When you don't move the mountains, I'm needing you to move. When you don't part the waters, I wish I could walk through. When you don't give the answers, as I cry out to you, I will trust, I will trust, I will trust in you. Yeah, 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 I will trust in you. Well, friends, you can have a seat, and kids, you are welcome to head on to the back and go up to Kids Creek.
Kids Creek.
Save
So
me
fun.
a snack.
Yeah. There's snacks up there. It's so fun. All right. So when you came in, you should have gotten a program. In that program is, what is
Yep,
this?
we got a connection card. You can put your name on there and your email address. There's lots of things to check and all the things, so stay tuned. We'll talk to you more about that, but we'd love to connect with you, and this is one way we do it.
Yep.
So go ahead and fill that out. Yeah.
All right. And then you can pull out your cell phone. We like to take selfies here. It's kind of fun. And then you can post that to your social media with the hashtag SCCMI. Let's take a selfie. And then this week, our selfie of the week is Amy Core, Kathy Fox, and Aaron Umstead.
All right.
Yeah. So if you post your selfie to your social media with that hashtag, then you might be featured as our selfie of the week next week. And when you are featured as the selfie of the week, you get Big B gift card.
Show me the card.
You get coffee.
Yep,
Or
let's do it.
tea, or a donut,
Yeah.
or whatever.
Now they can text that to you. They can email that to you.
Yes.
We are equal opportunity selfie of the
Yeah,
week.
there's
humans.
the email address right
Yep.
there. You can tag us on
Yeah,
Instagram. There's
get
lots
it.
of different options.
Love it.
This is sort of a way that people know, like, if they are looking for a church and they see you posting it, then they're like, wait, I can talk to Aaron about church.
I love it.
Or whatever. You
And
know?
we're also not a church that asks you to put your phones away. Maybe
That's
turn
true, too.
your volume down if you are playing Candy Crush, but no one's going to look at you weird if you have your phone out
That's
because
true.
it's a part of our lives
Yeah,
now.
that's sometimes that's what you need. So this week we're starting a brand new series. It's called Who is My Neighbor? We're sort of this idea that, like, we're called to love our neighbors,
Yeah.
but in order to do that well, we have to know who our neighbors are. And so this is a series that we're going to talk about that. Who are our actual neighbors here in our community? So we're kicking off the series today, and our message begins with this.
Be a good neighbor. And you're pretty sure that means loving your neighbor. But how? The first step to loving your neighbor is to know your neighbor. A quick demographic search yields graphs and charts and data that quickly become overwhelming. But behind every statistic, every bar graph, every number, there are very real people whose lives are full of needs, longings, and dreams. This 4-week series will explore how we can live out our values of being curious, creative, and compassionate when we ask, who is my neighbor?
So our mission here at Sycamore Creek is to ignite authentic life in Christ and fan it into an all-consuming flame. So you might hear us talking about that sometimes. That's our mission here. And some of our core values, you've probably heard us say this, is to be curious, creative, and compassionate. But today, we're going to flip it around just a little bit, and we're going to be curious, compassionate, and creative. So when we say we are curious, we typically mean, like, your questions are welcome here at Sycamore Creek. You don't have to check your brains at the door. You don't have to just take everything I say as fact. You can, like, fact check me or, like, think for yourself, and we can have a discussion about it, right? We seek answers and ways forward together. And we practice being curious in 3 ways. First, we're curious about what the Bible says about a topic or an issue. And second, we're curious about what others have to say about a topic or an issue, especially if they disagree with us. And then third, we're curious in prayer. But today, we're going to be curious about who our neighbors are. And we're going to be curious about who we're called to reach, who God has called us to reach. Because we may be called to reach a niche group, a specific group. And I think in some cases, we are. Now, when we say compassionate, what we mean is no matter who you are, where you've been, what you've done, you're welcome here. All are welcome here at Sycamore Creek. We seek to meet people where they are and then help them to grow, to be their most authentic self, to reach their potential, to be who God has made them to be. And we say we seek unity in essentials, liberty in non-essentials, and compassion in all things. And we seek to be compassionate in at least 3 ways. We're fiercely focused on the guest. We like to develop diverse friendships, and we're compassionate in service. But here's what we mean today when we say compassionate. We mean we need to learn our neighbor's needs. We're compassionate about our neighbor's needs. You know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs says that like the physiological is the base. You need food and shelter. And sometimes churches are really good at thinking about food and shelter and clothes, but don't always think about the things that are moving up that pyramid. But those are needs too. We have needs for connection, for loving and belonging, for self-actualization. And so we want to be compassionate about all of the needs we're meeting. And we're creative. We do ministries in creative ways, seeking to be rooted in a rich Christian tradition and history, while also improvising and thinking about the future. We don't get stuck in old ruts. We like to experiment and evaluate and change and try new things. And we practice being creative in at least 3 ways. We're creative in our ministry and our mission. We're creative in our outreach. We're creative in the use of our buildings and space. Did you know that we have a couple of theater groups who rehearse in our space throughout mostly the school year? But that's a way that we use our building and our space in creative ways. Now today, we want to be creative in how we meet our neighbors' needs and creative in how we invite them into the mission of Sycamore Creek. So even today, we're being creative about our values and not changing our values, but in how we're talking about them and how we're implementing them and thinking about this in sort of a new way. So one of the things that we do here at Sycamore Creek is that we'll pause throughout our message and give you a chance to think and process and reflect on what we're talking about. And so we're going to have a chat question here. How have you seen us already living out these 3 core values of being curious, compassionate, and creative? And if it's your first time here, then maybe you're just taking a minute to say, what you know about us. Even if you don't know if it's the whole picture, that's okay. So we'll have a 90-second timer. You can turn to someone who's around you. If you're joining us online, just put it in the chat and reflect on this question. I know. Very compassionate. All right. Well, I would love to hear some of your reflections on this. We came up with a few ourselves.
Yes. So the compassion, that's where I am right now. Just so many things. We do the compassion closet twice a year, where you bring in items, and we do that. We have a care pastor. That's his only job, is to care for our, the people in our community. But what I want to talk about today is the free Wi-Fi on the patio.
Yeah.
As an educator in public school, you think everybody has Wi-Fi. Not everybody has Wi-Fi. and it's an extra expense that some people just can't make fit into their budget. So we have that right out there for anyone
and
to use.
like
doing
electricity,
anything.
like plugs.
Yes.
So
I
if
forgot
people,
about
you can
plugs,
charge
yeah.
your devices and sit out there. I would think about like the South Lansing Art Festival as a way that we're creative in our outreach.
Mm-hmm.
So this happens on our big day, which is typically the first Sunday in October. This year, that's October 6th. And we have 500 pumpkins that we give away just to get people, like one per person, to come and like see us. And then we have art vendors and music, and it's like a party for our neighborhood, just to reach them. So we could talk for a long time about this.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's keep going. All right. So today we're starting this new series, Who is My Neighbor? And today, this first message is sort of an overview. We're going to be talking about who are the neighbors within a 10-minute drive of our building. So if you were watching online the pre-recorded message, Tom is talking about the 10-minute drive around Eastwood, right? And if you were in Potterville this morning, Mark is talking about a 10-minute drive from the Potterville campus. So each of us are kind of taking this sort of structure, and we're talking about who is within a 10-minute drive of our building. Next week, we're going to focus on one specific demographic segment, and then the following week, a different demographic segment. And in our final week of this series, we're sort of going to take different demographic segments from like that Eastwood is focusing on, that Potterville is focusing on, and that South Lansing is focusing on. And so you'll get sort of a wider picture of the specifics of each of our campuses. Now, we have a couple of key verses that are guiding this time. You'll notice that our messages during this series are going to be pretty heavy on these statistics and this information, but we want you to know that this is informed by Scripture and by our faith tradition. So in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus is asked, what are the greatest commandments? And Jesus said to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second is equally important, to love your neighbor as yourself. Now, when the people heard this, they were like, okay, but who is my neighbor actually? And then Jesus told the story of the Good Samaritan, and you might be familiar with this story. A man is beaten and robbed and left for dead, and then people, his kinsmen, his like people from his own group, walk past him. They don't help him. And then someone comes along who is like antagonistic, like their people groups are in conflict with one another. It's a Samaritan. And that's the person who stops and helps this man on the side of the road. And so Jesus looks and said, okay, well, who was a neighbor to this man? And the crowd says, well, it was the Samaritan man. And the one who showed mercy. And Jesus says, go and do the same. So that's our charge, is to care for people around us. In the book of Jeremiah, this is a book of prophet. I don't even know what word I'm trying to say there. Jeremiah was a prophet, and he said, work for the peace and prosperity of the city where I sent you into exile. Pray to the Lord for it, for its welfare will determine your welfare. So generally speaking, we could say God has sent us to this community. And so we should work for the welfare, work for the good of the community that we're in. And then in Acts, Paul is writing, this is the New Testament, referring back to King David. After he had served the purpose of God in his own generation, he died and was laid beside his ancestors. So we are going to work for the purpose of God in our generations. Now, one key assumption that we're holding onto through this series is that we can't reach everyone. Now, that's not to say that everyone isn't welcome. Everyone is welcome here. But we know that we can't reach specifically, intentionally, everybody. Because if we tried to do that, honestly, it would just be chaos. It would be a little bit it would be very disjointed. We wouldn't have a clear goal, a clear direction that we're moving in. You really can't please everybody. Maybe you've heard that before. You can't please everybody. And so as we're making decisions about our sermons, as we're making decisions about our buildings, about how we're using our space, we're making them with certain demographic segments in mind. And again, that's not to say that everyone's not welcome here. Everyone is welcome here. But this is informing some of the decisions that we're making and our strategy and how to reach people. For example, there are many LGBTQIA affirming churches in the area, but most of the other ones are liturgical and formal. So there would be a church that you go to that the pastor's wearing robes. A lot of my colleagues in the United Methodist Church, they wear robes on Sunday, and it's pretty formal, and they would have call and response prayers and stuff like that. That's great. I love that there are those churches. But as far as I know, there's not very many churches in the area that are LGBTQIA affirming, and a place where the pastor might stand on the stage in torn up jeans. That's not everybody's cup of tea, but this is who we are here, right? So it's good that we have different churches. It's good that we have different people, and this is who we are and how we're sort of embodying the space. So we're going to talk about demographics, and that's sort of a weird word. We all kind of know what it means, but today we're going to say demographics are statistics that describe populations and their characteristics. So a few key categories of demographics are population, race, age, income, education, and generations. So this is going to feel a little bit like a fire hose of information. You should know that going into this. We do have in the bookstore a book that you can check out. It's called, I forget what it's called, See, No, Love, something. I don't know. It's not one that we're specifically basing the series on, but it's written by Tom Bandy, who's given us a lot of information that we're using. Bob's checking that out for me, which is great. You don't know? All right, cool. It's fine. It's not, it's on this. There you go. I should have known that. See, no, serve. That's what it is. See, no, serve. Here it is. Yeah. Yay! Give it up for Bob. All right, so that's in our micro bookstore. Our books are $10. If ever there's a book that you really want and it's a hardship for you to pay the $10, just check in with me. We can make it work. All right, so again, actually not again, first time, one big question we have: how are we curious, compassionate, and creative with our neighbors' needs? How are we curious, compassionate, and creative with our neighbors' needs? Well, to answer that question, we need to know what our neighbors' needs are. So we're looking at a 10-minute drive from the South Lansing campus. So that's what that is. I guess you can make it to Gunnisonville in 10 minutes if you just go straight up there's a few places, right? But 10-minute drive of this campus. So population within a 10-minute drive by 2033. So this is 2023 to 2033. Right now, we're at 110,000 people. By 2033, we'll be at 116,000 people. That's a 5.4% increase. So with each demographic data point, we can see who we are and if we're actually reaching our neighbors. Are we growing consistently with the population around us? We can ask, is our church growing or shrinking? Most church growth experts would say that if your numbers are going, anything under 0% is obviously shrinking. 0 to 5% growth is plateau. You're actually not increasing. You're just keeping up with the population growth, right? And then 5% plus is actual growth. So we can reflect on that. Are we growing consistent with our community? Now, racial makeup by 2028. So this is from 2023 to 2028. 60%, by 2028, our community will be 60% white, 40% other. So slight shift there, slightly less white and slightly more other. And 18% Black, 11% Latinx, 6% Asian, and 5% Pacific Islander. So then the question is, does our church look like our community? No, not right now. So we got to be curious and creative and think about how to make some changes there. What would it take to look like our community? How can we reach other people? All right, average age by 2033 is 38 years old. In the Michigan, in the state, the average is 42. So, quick show of hands. Are you, everyone who's above 30, or younger than 35 years old, raise your hand. Everyone who's older than 35, raise your hand. Ooh, guys. That was shocking even to me. Okay, all right. So, what's the average age of this campus? Well, I think it's over 35, safe to say. Well, over 35. All right. Average household income by 2028. All right, so from 2023 to 2028, $63,678, increasing to $71,546, 12.8% increase. Now, it's interesting to compare this to where Michigan's at, because Michigan as a whole is already at $87,979 and will increase to $100,185, a 13.8% increase. So there's two things to notice here. One is an average, or tithe. When at the church we use the word tithe, we're talking about 10% giving to the church. If people did that, that would be about $6,300 a year per household. If people were doing that, then there would be plenty of resources for the mission of the church. So that's one thing to notice. Another thing to ask is, how does this affect our mission possibilities to be $28,000 below the state average? So how is our mission supported by this local economy, and how is our mission affected by being so far below the state average? I mean, we can answer those questions together. Like, that's an ongoing conversation, something to reflect on. All right, education by 2028. The percentage of people who have their bachelor's degree or graduate degree, 34.6% within a 10-minute drive of this campus. In Michigan, it's 30.4%. So we're slightly above the Michigan state average on education. So then we can ask, how do we worship God with our mind? How do we speak to the intellect of our neighbors? How do we reach people, really no matter where they are, but recognizing that we've got a good percentage of people in our communities who have a bachelor's degree or a graduate degree. All right, generations by 2033. Gen Z will increase from 23% to 40% of the population. And millennials will decrease from 37% to 28% of the population. That's pretty fascinating to me, how that works, because, I mean, they're already all born, right? But it's just changing the percentage of what's represented in our populations. And so we can ask, who are Gen Z? Who's Gen Z in our community? How are they different from millennials, from Gen X, from boomers, and other generations? How can we reach people who are here in our communities? Remember in Acts, Paul reflected on King David that he served God in his own generation. So we have generations here that are represented, and how can we reach people? Clearly, like, if 90% of the people in this room are above the age of 35, then we don't have very many Gen Z people here. So how can we reach them? How can we? I'm not going to stand up here and try to use Gen Z lingo. That's not going to be a good idea. But I can understand what it means and like recognize it, right? That's a step. So anyways, we're still in the fire hose situation, and we're still asking this one big question: how are we curious, compassionate, and creative with our neighbors' needs. And these are the demographics that we just covered. We talked about the population growth. We talked about the racial makeup of our community, about how the age is shifting. We talked about income levels and education and generations. So let's pause here for another chat question. How do you see similarities or differences between Sycamore Creek and our neighbors? And remember, we're thinking about population, race, age, income, education, and generations. Or you can answer, what is one stat that jumped out at you? What are you like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. That's so amazing or intriguing or interesting or whatever. Turn to someone around you. If you're joining us online, you can put it in the chat. Take about 90 seconds and let's talk about this. All right, hopefully your eyes are not glazing over, and if they were, the conversation brought you back to us and you're ready to engage once again.
Now that you said that, I feel seen. So I did notice being in education as my career, the disparity between, in our area, we have a higher education level than the Michigan average, but a lower income level.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting. I'm not quite sure what it means. But
Yeah, I mean, just spitballing, I'm wondering what that says about our employment opportunities. Like, does that mean, I think it would mean that people are underemployed. If you have that education and yet we have lower income levels, that probably means a lot of people are underemployed, and maybe there's not the same employment options that there are in other parts of the state. And that's going to affect all kinds of things. I mean, the income, obviously. Yeah. But I also would wonder if that affects, like, morale and hope. And, like, there can be discouragement that comes when you're underemployed. So those are all things that I'm like, oh, I wonder if that's true. Like, I'm just kind of curious about that. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. All right. So hopefully this is starting to feel more like a fountain and less like a fire hose. Like, we're not like, just like totally overwhelming everybody, although we might. And we're still coming back to that one big question. How are we curious, compassionate, and creative with our neighbors' needs? So we've been talking about demographics, but there's another thing that we can look at, and that's psychographics and belief. Now, I didn't know that word until we were working on this. So I'm just going to tell you, psychographics, what we're talking about here are lifestyle, opinions, attitudes, interests, and personality traits. Well, that makes a little bit more sense, doesn't it? This is where it kind of can start to get interesting. So many of you know, you've heard of Experian. Experian is the credit company that, like, tracks your credit score. They also, like, can take the data of, like, our purchases to extrapolate information about our communities. So they came up with 71 mosaic segments. All right? And these different mosaic segments are broken down into 19 family groups, which they label A through S. The A is the highest socioeconomically, and the S is the lowest socioeconomically. And then each of those family groups are broken down into numbers, right? So we'll get into some examples in just a minute. Now, Tom Bandy, he's the guy who wrote this book, is a Canadian demographer, try saying that 5 times fast, theologian, author, and church coach. Now, he took this information and he interpreted it for the sake of people in ministry, so that we can know better how to reach the people who are in our community. So next week, we're going to be talking about the singles and starters. So this is the O family group that includes O51 through O54, so there's 4 subgroups in it. These are folks who are looking for heroes of faith. Within a 30-minute drive from the capital, this is 31.4% of the people in the area. 30-minute drive, so we're shifted just a little bit. 30-minute drive from the capital, 31.4% of the population. Singles and starters are the biggest group around each of our campuses. Or the most the one that we all have in common of being a large group. All right, and then in week 3, we're going to talk about L42. So that's a subgroup. L is the family group, 42 is the subgroup. This is rooted flower power. So these are going to be folks who are approaching retirement or have just retired, who are committed to the neighborhood, right? They always take time to smell the roses, appreciate what you have. Now, within a 30-minute drive of the capital, this is 4.7% of the area, but remember, this is one subgroup. It's not the whole family group. So this is a significant group both in our church and the neighborhoods around each campus. Now, week 4, we're going to have even more fun, if you're having fun with this. We're going to look at subgroups that are near each of our campuses. So around Eastwood is reaching G24, ambitious singles. Spiritual truth is buried beneath an avalanche of religious hypocrisy. That's very true of the people who are drawn to our new Eastwood campus. In South Lansing, we're reaching M45, growing and expanding families. This is people who are interested in God and family and country. This is 2.6% of the area of a 30-minute drive from the capital. In Potterville, they're reaching I-30, potlucks and the great outdoors. Religious practices cherish our past and can empower my future. So in week 4, we're going to look at each of those 3 subgroups and find information about them. And that will help us to understand our other campuses in addition to understanding our South Lansing campus. Now again, we're in the fire hose, right? But we have this one big question. How are we curious, compassionate, and creative with our neighbors' needs? Now, I introduced psychographics and beliefs, and we talked about psychographics, and so now let's talk about some of our beliefs. There's a 2021 American Beliefs Study. This happens every 4 years, and so this was the last one. This is going back to within a 10-minute drive of our building. There's agreements about God, about Jesus, and about social and moral issues. So, top 3 agreements about God. Most people believe that God is love and invites the world into a loving relationship. I have a relationship with one living God. I believe God created a literal heaven and hell. So most people within a 10-minute drive of South Lansing agree with these statements. Most people within a 10-minute drive of South Lansing disagree with these statements. I believe God created the world but takes no further part in it. I believe there are many gods. I don't believe a God exists. The material universe is all that is. So most people disagree with this. So this is painting a sort of historically orthodox view of who God is. All right, top 3 agreements about Jesus. Again, people tend to agree with these statements. People in the church do not behave as Jesus would behave. Belief in Jesus does not require participation in a church. Jesus was both divine and human. Now, top 3 disagreements about Jesus. People generally would disagree with these statements. Jesus was a great prophet only. Jesus was a good and wise moral teacher, but no more. Jesus lived a perfect, sinless life while on earth. That's kind of interesting, I think. Mostly historically orthodox view of Jesus, but a little bit of an outlier there, that they don't agree that Jesus lived a perfect, sinless life, right? That's a little bit of an outlier. And there's this understanding or this belief that church is irrelevant, that people who are showing up to church are not really consistent with who Jesus is. So that's something that we can keep thinking about, right? Top 3 social and moral agreements. So within a 10-minute drive of the South Lansing campus, people tend to agree with these statements. I believe strong families are key to social stability. I believe America has a moral responsibility to be a force for good in the world. I believe tolerance is necessary for social peace and well-being. Now, you might assume that that means that all of our neighbors are pretty conservative, but wait till you see the disagreements. People disagree with this. I believe race relations in the United States are generally good. I believe abortion should become illegal. I believe religious communities should be exempt from LGBTQ-based policies or regulations. So people tend to disagree with those statements. So it's a fairly mixed progressive and conservative view of social and moral perspectives. That's kind of interesting. All right, top 6 religious preferences here. So we're comparing a 10-minute drive from South Lansing with Michigan. No, Michigan to USA. That's what that is. Michigan to USA. It's tricky for me sometimes too, okay? So top religious preference is Catholic. In Michigan, that's 25.6% of the population. In the United States, it's 24.9%. I'm going to draw your attention to the second one, which is the none category. There's no religious preference. In Michigan, that's 23.4%. In the United States, that's 20.8%. That's kind of interesting that there are more people here in Michigan who don't have any religious preference than in the United States. And then we had to put 6 on there because we had to have Methodist on the screen, right? Like, we're United Methodist. 5.8% in Michigan, 6.5% in the United States. Now, even with this, looking back at the nuns, 23.4% to 20.8%, Michigan to USA. Look at this from 2017 to 2021. In 2017, it's 28.8%, and in 2021, it's 24.3%. So it's actually going down. It makes you wonder, what religious preferences do they have if they're no longer identifying as none? That's an interesting thing to reflect on or to wonder about. Here's information on participation in the local church. How often are people attending? 59.1%, about 60% of people are attending weekly. About 60% are attending weekly. About 22% are attending a couple of times a month, and, down to 4.4%. Those are what we call Creasters, Christmas and Easter folks, very lovingly. I get, people have different seasons in their lives, and sometimes that's what you got. But what this means, though, only 60% of people are showing up every week. So in order for us to have, a regular attendance of 100 people, you have to have about 200 people who are connected to Sycamore Creek in some way or another. And so to connect with people, we have to do that in more ways than just on Sunday morning. We have to be creative in how we're reaching people and connecting to people. So out of 32 options in 5 big categories, here are top 10 religious programs or ministry preferences. So people who pick this said, this is moderately or very important to me that my church has warm and friendly encounters, has quality sermons, has a traditional worship experience. That's interesting, right? Opportunities to develop personal relationships, holiday programs, and activities. So when I see this, I think guest services is essential. How we welcome people is essential. You might not know this, but if you've attended here at least once before, you're part of our team that welcomes people. You're on guest services now. You are part of the team who welcomes people here for the first time. We're fiercely focused on the guest. And the time that we spend on sermons and worship, that's valuable. That's an important. Quality sermons are important. Moving on, for 6 through 10, opportunities for volunteering in the community is really important. Adult social services, celebration of the sacraments, that's like communion, family-oriented activity, and involvement in social causes. So these are all still really important for the people around our campus, to have community activities, to have events for the kids, to be engaged in social causes. These are the things that are important for the people around here. Now, I'm just going to do the bottom 5. I'm not going to give 10 on the bottom. So these are people that are like, this is really not that important to me. Crisis support groups, Bible or scripture study or prayer groups, spiritual discussion groups, social justice advocacy work, and online or virtual experiences. Now, just because we have this information doesn't mean we're going to build the whole thing around this stuff, because we have online and virtual experiences, right? And part of that is because when we think about our singles and starters groups, online and virtual experiences are really important to singles and starters. And so this is information, but it's not necessarily making all of our decisions, right? We're aware of it, we're filtering it, and then we're going to make the decisions to reach the people God is calling us to reach. So, back to the reminder. This is a fire hose, but maybe, hopefully, for some of us, it can be a splash pad, right? Have you ever seen a kid stand under the big bucket, at Great Wolf Lodge? There's 40,000 gallons of water that just drop on them, and kids will stand there for 5 minutes waiting to get barreled over by the water. So it can be fun. That's all I'm saying. It can be fun. All right, so we've got this one big question. How are we curious, compassionate, and creative with our neighbors' needs? And our key verses, let's just remember these real quick. Jesus said to love your neighbor as yourself. Jeremiah said, work for the peace and prosperity of the city where you live. And then in reference to David, to King David, Paul said that we should work for our own generation. David worked for his own generation. So, when we're curious, we're asking, how can we be curious about who our neighbor is? And compassionate. How can we be compassionate to learn our neighbor's needs? And creative. How can we creatively meet the needs of our neighbors? And we're doing all of this remembering that our mission is to ignite authentic life in Christ and fan it into an all-consuming flame. So as we're wrapping up the message now, let's pause for another chat question. Based on what you've learned here and already know, how are we doing being curious, compassionate, and creative with our neighbors? What is God's purpose for you or for us in this generation? Take a minute and a half, turn to someone around you. If you're joining us online, put it in the chat. Let's talk about it. All right.
Love all the chatter. This is so good.
Yeah.
Well, we decided quite concretely that Sycamore Creek and built into our culture is the small group system that we have, and it keeps growing every year.
Yeah.
And I was struck by the fact that at the top we want social justice action, at the bottom we don't want social.
Right.
So
weird.
what I'm excited about is that there is several in here, and if that's not for you, then you choose another group.
Yeah.
And if it is for you, we got you.
Yeah, I noticed that on one of the least important things was the Bible study or prayer groups. Mm-hmm. And we have a couple of Bible study and prayer groups, but we also have a lot of like topical groups that are looking at books or connection groups or service groups. And so there's like just a lot of different options.
There's like a bonfire group in here.
a
Like,
bonfire
really?
group.
I love that. So good.
Yeah.
I'll
So
take some
definitely
s'mores.
check this out. It's in your program, and you can use the QR code to sign up, or you can write it on your connection card as well. So there's that. All right. So if you are the kind of person that has really enjoyed this and you want to do a deeper dive, some of you are shaking your head now. You can scan this QR code, and it will go to our link tree. And the link tree has a number of links on it, including the connection card, including giving link, and also demographics links. And so this is an opportunity for you to do more and look at more. Now, all the QR codes that we have go to the link tree. So
That might be the way that we're serving our techies, our techie generation.
Singles and starters are digitally savvy.
There we go.
We'll talk about that next week. Yeah. All right, so we would like to connect with you. We think that you're here because you want to connect with us as well. And so we have a couple of ways to do that. We have a video of announcements today. So enjoy this with me.
Rain or shine, you can connect with something deeper than yourselves today at sycamorecreekchurch.org/connect. Leave your name and email on the connection card and place it in the blue buckets by your seat. Flip it over to take a next step, like studying the demographics and inviting a friend to join you. You can also fill out a prayer request and have a team of people praying for you. Join us on June 14th or 15th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. for the Juneteenth Ice Cream Social in Rio Town. Join Sycamore Creek as we join the Juneteenth celebration in Rio Town. And volunteer for our table at Pride. Be loving June 22nd in Old Town, and give hugs and welcome others for our table at Pride. Your giving makes everything here possible at Sycamore Creek. You can continue to give online at sycamorecreekchurch.org/give, in the blue buckets by your seat, through mail, through our app, and many other ways. Let's take it back to the worship space and see what your giving has made possible this week.
All right.
Talk about a fire hose.
I know.
That's
that was
awesome.
a lot of information. Most of it's on the back of your
It
card.
is. So if you would look on the back of that, we've got our next steps right there. And while Carol's voice is captivating, there was a lot. So we have them here for you. And there will not be a quiz on the demographics. You can study it just because you want to know. There will be no quiz.
Yeah. And I would just say that if your information has changed, make sure to update that so that we can send you mailings if you know.
Yeah.
We don't send a whole lot, but there's stuff.
No.
And then if you're a first-time guest here and you fill this out and drop it in the blue bucket, then we have a gift, a book in the cafe.
Love that.
So make sure to do that.
But let's all fill it out, because you don't
all
want
fill
to
it
be that person that makes the newcomer feel awkward by doing by filling this out.
And did you already talk about prayer? Did I miss that?
Prayer?
If you have a prayer request, you can put it
no.
on the back, and our team will be praying for you this week.
Yeah.
So.
And no one will be surprised I wasn't telling about the prayer, because my mind is on ice cream. I get to volunteer for the Juneteenth Ice Cream Social on Friday. So exciting. And then Saturday is a huge festival as well in Rio Town. So if you're around, you could also volunteer for Saturday. I did that last year. It's so rewarding. So I highly recommend.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, And we have a couple of different ways that you can give this morning. You can scan the QR code. You can go to that website. If you have a cash or a check, you can put it in the envelope.
Cash, you say?
Not very many people have that, but if you do, or there's a QR code here too, and that goes to the giving page. And you can just drop that in the blue bucket.
Yeah.
Your giving helps make the mission here possible. And this week we're celebrating, every week we celebrate something that your giving has helped to make happen. And today we're celebrating our trip to annual conference. So a couple of weeks ago, Pastor Tom and I and Kathy Doby, who's on our vision team, we went to annual conference. And this is a gathering of like 1,400 people who are United Methodist pastors or laity, and we get together. Some of it is a little dry, like our demographics information, but I got to connect with some other like women clergy, women pastors who are here in Lansing area, and that was a really good time to just meet with other people and be encouraged by them. So thank you for your giving. That helps make that possible.
Nice.
We have one more shout out question. Would you rather swim in a pool of baked beans or a pool of jelly?
Obviously jelly. Obviously.
You know what? Every
No
time I've
seeds.
read this until just now, I thought it said Jell-O.
Jello would be better. Jello would be better, but if I have to choose jelly, but I don't want to answer the question, where have those baked beans been? I don't want to answer that.
Yikes.
I don't want to.
Okay. If you are grossed out, you can definitely anytime write a suggestion for a shout out question on your connection card. These are not easy to come up with, so I welcome your suggestions and your feedback.
Okay.
Gross. Okay, would you stand with me? And we have a couple of more songs to sing this morning.
Okay, so true confession, I've been thinking most of the service about how to transition from that question into singing the song Great Are You, Lord, and I came up with nothing. So my creativity was shot. Grape jelly? I'm not going that route. Okay, so, but we are going to sing together, and it's one of the joyous things that we get to do in community, right, is like have fun, be silly, be goofy, and be passionate about God and all that God has done for us and all we get to do for each other. So that's the best I got. So just invite you to sing as we go.
Darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord, with your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. praise. Our hearts will cry and these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all of the earth will shout our praise. Our hearts will cry and these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And all of the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only.
Greatest support. So the last song we're doing is Echo, and it's a good, lively song to sing. Sorry, I gotta make sure I don't fall off my stool over here. And yeah, I'm really excited for us to sing this one. It's such a beautiful reminder of how vast and expansive the love of God is, and how relentless the love of God is, that there's no position, posture, or place in your life where you are not loved. And I just think that's a really good reminder for us.
Falling, fear is calling, still you're calling me. Faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me, you won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating your promises to me. Now there's no stopping what you have started till it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me, you won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Echo in my soul. my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up. You won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out, breaking out, breaking out. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Echo in my soul.
All right, well, thanks for coming this morning. I hope to see you back next week. We are continuing our series with a conversation between Gretchen and I. She is a member of the Singles and Starters, and we're going to be talking about our Singles and Starters neighbors, so you don't want to miss that. Also, today, right now, after the service, we have our town hall meeting. So pizza is on the way. It might be here, but if not, it's on the way. It will be here very soon. We're going to have an update on financial information, on South Lansing parsonage, on worship, all that kind of stuff. So stick around for that, or schedule a meeting with me and I'll give you the update. But otherwise, be curious, be compassionate, and be creative, and go in peace, friends.